mentioned she would.
Yeah, but no, I don't have either Jessica or, see, but I had talked to Carol and she knows it started. Gave me the thumb.
She's on. She just joined.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry, guys, we're get going these. And good morning, Carol. Anyway, so I want to start with, this is a Planning and Construction Committee meeting of 3/8/22. First item, 1.1, call air, roll call, please.
Okay, Trustee Sperber.
Here.
Trustee Carey.
Here.
Trustee Chaplin on Zoom.
Here. Good morning. Sorry I can't join you in person.
Quite all right.
And Trustee Kramer is absent.
All right, item 2.0, do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
There we go, just like your committee here. All right, next thing is approval of minutes. We have 3.1, which is the February 8th meeting. Anybody have comments? Sean, Carol?
No comments.
No comments.
How about a motion, one of you two?
Chair,
I'll
I
make
move-
the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Have first and second, any other comments? None. Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, just moving along. Next item is 4. For information, we have no items. Item number 5, let's get in the middle of this meeting. So 5.1, our first one has to do with the little on roofs. Ted? Good to see you, my friend. I know you're going to have another item for us. Let's talk about roof.
Morning,
Good morning.
trustees. Chair Sperber, CEO Griffin. Yes, we're going to talk about roofs today. And we have quite a few of them around here. So we're asking for permission to execute a professional service agreement for our roof assessment services at the Reno Tahoe International Airport and the Reno Tahoe Stead Airport with Building Technologies Associates in the amount of $58,369.50. This action is in support of the RTA strategic priorities as identified in the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority fiscal year 2019-2023 strategic plan, being priority number 3, facilities of the future, priority number 4, safety and security, and number 6, customer experience. A little background, we have 1.2 million square feet of roofs between here and Stead. The last assessment was done in 2003. Predominantly our roofs are a polyvinyl chloride roof. It's a single membrane roof. It's performed really well for us here. Like I said, it was 2003 since we did our last one. It's really kind of time for a new assessment. We've been doing roofs based off of that 2003 assessment since I've been here. In the last 18 years, we've hit a roof almost every year. They were just in need of being replaced. It's a critical tool for us in developing our future capital projects, as well as making and keeping track of our repairs. And it's similar, very similar to the pavement management program. The engineering staff direct selected BTA based on the following: experience providing required services, knowledge of the local weather conditions, knowledge of the local labor and material cost, overall performance with other agencies in the Reno area, and the ability to provide and maintain a database for the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority to update as needed. As I mentioned, the overall performance of the other agencies, we have connections and people that we talk to in different agencies. In this particular one, it was the school district. The school district recently, I think last year or the year before, went out with an RFQ, and they selected BTA. And BTA has performed really well with them. So that's one of the reasons we went this way. There are not many companies that provide this service throughout the nation. There are no local companies that do. We could hire a local roofer to come out and assess our roofs. They're going to want us. They're going to want us to pay for that. They could set the numbers for these roof replacements, but it eliminates them for bidding. So this company, BTA, does designs. It does the assessments. It maintains that database for us. So based on all this information, we developed a scope of work, the engineering staff did, based upon our experience with the roofs, experience with other roofs, and the 2003 assessment. So BTA provided a proposal based on this scope of work, and that's what we're here today to award, or get the permission to award. So BTA Associates, they're a respected consulting firm in the industry. They do nationwide delivery of professional engineering, asset management, consulting services. They understand our roof assets. They understand the requirements for an optimal mission, or the final performance, and cost to meet those roofing solutions. There's actually one of our roofs there. You can see the old concrete pyramids, and that's all single-ply membranes. Funding for this project was approved by the Board of Trustees as part of the mid-year request for the fiscal year 2021-2022 under engineering O&M. So staff recommends that the board adopt the following motion. Move to authorize the president and CEO to execute a professional service agreement for a roof assessment for the Reno Tahoe International Airport and the Reno Tahoe Stead Airport with Building Technologies Associates in the amount of $58,369.50. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Ted. Questions?
Questions?
Question. One of the things then I want to go through, obviously, I've got a background of roof inspection, PVC, and obviously you're getting into a new thing now where they're using some software to identify, and I know it fits in. I know Amanda's trying to get things to where we know where everything physically in. Is this, I don't know, are they using actual software that they have for this? Or you're saying a database, and are we going to own then that? Or how does that fit in, and how does it fit in with everything else digitally we're trying to get this whole place?
So we'll have access to that database. The database will remain within on their server.
Okay.
And I know, like on Amanda's products, I've seen the little crosshairs that they put all over it but they typically use a GPS, a high-end GPS that hits the points. That's kind of been an industry standard for about 6-7 years now, that they use that to mark the building, show where the rooftops are, and then they use that.
So when they come in with the repairs, we'll be able to put it back on there. I'm just thinking as we're in the future, I learned a lot sitting on that ticketing of how the world has changed and that we're trying to actually know where everything is and repairs. So you will have this database available I can put in.
Sure.
The other thing that with that database, like you're saying, in the pavements, what we have, besides just a database of locating it, we use the old paver program. We actually can look at how much money it will cost, what to do, as Sean's done with the city of Sparks for many years. So we have some things with budgets. Is there a way to take some of this data and utilize it? Because, as we're getting this newer thing, it'd be nice to have this. Because I saw you have over 1 million feet, correct? And so this will give you the base on there, and then you'll be able to see that and then figure and recommend each year as we're doing budgets, right, Sean?
Yes.
And we want to get this, so we're keeping enough money in here to do these things.
Right, and that's pretty much what we've been doing on a limited basis because
Right.
we didn't have all the technology we have back in 2003. And I've been updating that database, and current database that we're using is not, you can type in you did a repair, but it's not to show you where the repair was.
Right.
So there's a lot of difference between the technology then and now. Like Art mentioned today, it's just the technology has just gone crazy in the last 10 years. So
Right, and I want to make sure that we take this data that we get and be able to import. I know that Amanda's trying to get this stuff to fit together so we can go back and see in an area, what we're doing, or as she's looking at areas that we should build or not, and Chris and her looking at areas that we want to do things. So I want to make sure that that's put into the rest of the system of what we're doing, that and CAD and work.
yes, sir. We're headed that way.
Thank you. Yeah, the world has changed in the roofing from our old days of you. And the other thing I remember you had said, I asked a couple years ago, we do have certified people that do inspection on roofs and the repairs. And so when we do a repair ourselves, we're in a flashing, we have somebody look it over. Is that correct?
Typically, we'll do a temporary patch, and then once a year we bring in a local contractor to go through and fix all those. Typically, we do it in the summertime, and there's a lot of damage, believe it or not, from different things in the wintertime. And then they repair those, and then we put it into the existing database. But we don't have the different pictures and it show exactly.
Right, exactly, but we're getting into it. So that'll be great with this. This will give us a baseline for this price, and we'll be able to kind of see where we are. Oh, that sounds great. Any more comments?
No comments for me?
All right, thank you, Carol. Want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion to accept the proposed award of the contract.
Can I have
Second.
a first and second? Any more comments? Doesn't sound like. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Okay, unanimous. Thank you, Ted, with number 1. Okay, next one is 5.2. Ted is going to speak to us again on another environmental type project, which I kind of like, as I told you, as we're getting in this new modern age, that we're looking at things, and so this is another nice little project similar to one we did, last year?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, my friend.
So this is for the FAA veil, PC air, and GPU replacement. And this is extremely matches what we did last year with the ground equipment and having them be electric and installing chargers. So the purpose of this action is to authorize the President and CEO to execute a professional service agreement for electrical engineering design services for the Federal Aviation Administration's voluntary airport low emissions program for the replacement of preconditioned air and ground power equipment at the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority with PK Electric in the amount of $86,000. This action is in support of the RTA strategic priorities as identified in the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority fiscal year 2019-2023. Those strategic priorities being number 3, facilities of the future, number 4, safety and security, and number 6, customer experience. So the VAIL program provides AIP grant funding to commercial service airports located in a non-attainment or maintenance of national ambient air quality standard areas, which we are. Provides for emission reduction projects to benefit local air quality. VAIL funding, FAA noise and environmental set-aside funds. That means this is a specific set of funds that have nothing to do with our other entitlements and discretionary allotments. They absolutely will not affect them. And the picture is of a ground power unit. It's basically the little beige box there with all the cables sticking out of it, and the airplanes plug into that. So these particular units, instead of it being the 60 hertz that comes out of your electrical outlet in your house, airplanes operate off of 400 hertz, which the best way I can explain it, as explained to me, is it's a pure power. The units have reached their useful lives, and we're starting to get this where, the most of them are at 19 years old, it's harder to find parts for. They will be replaced with more efficient units. PK Electric to provide planning and design services for the installation of 23 PCRs and 1 portable PCR, and then 23 ground power units and 1 portable ground power unit. Now, these portable units are they'll come on trailers ready to be used. And associated, PK Electric will also do some associated electrical infrastructure, and they'll also design a submetering system on all these units, just like we did with the ground equipment. And then we can track that usage by airline or by jet bridge. The VAIL application process. So should the FAA VAIL program application be successful in an AIP grant award, all costs associated with this capital project request, including the application, the design, and construction, are reimbursable. The federal and sponsor shares are 93.75% and 6.25% respectively. All FAA VAIL-funded PCRs and GPUs will be owned and maintained by the Airport Authority, and like I just mentioned, the electrical usage will be tracked to the respective users. PK Electric, they've been around the Reno area for 25 years. They have a home office here. They have a branch in Colorado. They're licensed in 17 states, and they've worked on numerous projects with R&O and Reno Tahoe state airports and throughout the West. They got them. They're quite the busy company. So the design services are $86,000. It's funded by the RTA fiscal year 2021-2022 capital improvement project as a mid-year. We talked about the federal share and then our share. Design and construction costs reimbursed by the FAA if applicant is approved. So the staff recommends that the board adopt the following motion. Move to authorize the president and CEO to execute a professional service agreement for electrical engineering design services for the Federal Aviation Administration's voluntary airport low emissions program for preconditioned air and ground power unit replacement project at the Reno Tahoe International Airport with PK Electric in the amount of $86,000.
Yeah, a lot of words.
That's
A lot of words
awful.
in that one. All right, questions, comments, guys?
No questions.
Carol?
No questions. Just one of those little things that you never knew went on when you were getting on a plane. I thought it was interesting background and seems like a no-brainer to me.
It is funny. Oh, you notice when you're in the deep south and the guy doesn't have any air conditioning in that unit.
Yeah.
We can tell you growing up there, right? You can.
I think you need this.
I just wanted to confirm, if I may, this is just for design services, correct? Not construction?
Yes, ma'am.
Just design, okay.
And again, so this is for design, and hopefully they like this, and then they say, great, FAA says, great, do it, and then we get paid for the design and the construction, and it's environmentally good, so it's kind of nice. These are more of those niceties. I'm glad, I don't know who comes up with that at staff, but it's great that you guys are looking at these kind of projects, you know. Good for us, and, you know, and there's money available, and we can take advantage of our bad air. Anyway, so, sounds great. All right, no more questions? How about a motion, someone, one of you two?
Motion to approve as presented by staff.
I'll
How about
second
this?
that.
All right, have first and second, any other comments? Call for the vote, all in favor say aye.
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 Right?
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
I guess you're not going to do the third one Chris is going to do. Too bad, okay. Morning, Chris.
Good morning, Chair Sperber, CEO Griffin, trustees. Chris Cobb, and I'm going to be joined, your manager of engineering and construction, I'm going to be joined by Brandon McElette. He's got a little bit of help here with this next item. So we're here this morning to talk about our remote economy parking lot design services item. With that, the project is to design a new development of a customer or parking lot for us in a remote area. It could add up to 400 parking spaces. Currently, it's going to be on a land that's vacant of about 4 acres, and we use it throughout the year, which is greatly needed. With that, I'll have Mr. Michelet speak a little more about our issues here with parking and give you a little more depth in that.
Hello, President CEO and trustees. My name is Brandon McElite, the supervisor in landside operations. So just to give a background, starting in June of this year, we saw an unprecedented parking demand that I'm sure everyone has noticed. We were anticipating a 2 to 3 year return to normal operations, and thankfully we saw this a lot sooner, but it did come with its own challenges. We did have to open up some overflow parking starting in June of 2021, which we've never had to do before. And then that kind of kicked off a 6-month, until now, need for overflow parking. We saw an increase over 4th of July of 800 vehicles. In Labor Day, 500. Thanksgiving, we saw 700 additional vehicles. We utilize lots, employee lots. We utilize lots that are owned by the rental car companies, as well as we're able to get some relief from the convention center and had to utilize those lots as well, which aren't ideal as the distance and the impact on customers. So we believe this, there's some impacts that we've seen, and we believe this is also has to do with the TNCs, our Uber and Lyfts aren't back to full capacity. They're down about 44% versus 2019. And we're also seeing our duration of parking in the long term about 12%, and in the short term about 27%. So those contributing factors are where we're seeing our increased parking demand and the need for some permanent additional parking.
There's a little background there with that. And then here's the location of the site. So it borders along the terminal road there to the west, just below our off-ramp that coming into the airport. You can see there highlighted in green. On the right-hand side, you see it a little closer up. The majority of this area is all base and kind of grindings and a mix of dirt there. The whole site, really depending on permitting, it may include the alleyway once we get through with City of Reno and how we'll access in and out of this area. But this gives you an idea of where we're locating this remote lot. With that, you can kind of see here the dirt and base area, what you have with the existing site. A lot of times it's been used currently for overflow parking for the rental cars, storing cars out there. Here's kind of a shot of the alley to kind of give you an idea what that looks in its current state. With that, the selection of our consultant, if you remember this past August, we did do an RFQ to create kind of a list of those interested in doing parking lot projects for us. The statement of qualifications we got at that time, there were 4 firms, one of which we already chose for our blue lot reconstruction project that we're going through now. And we went with the next firm, which is JUB Engineers Incorporated, for the help in this project. And it was a qualifications-based SOQ in our that we selected the firm out of that. Currently, we did a jump start on this. As you heard, Brandon, we are struggling. So working within our approval process here, we did get a PSA going for just the geotechnical and survey to really kickstart this and get this ball rolling, just because we really want to fast track this as best possible. So currently we are in the process of geotechnical and survey work as we go to date. This item is really an amendment to that survey process and including for JUB the design process is what we're asking. It'll be the site design, which includes lighting, security, fencing, landscaping, stormwater, all those things just like any developer has to do through the city. All your civil improvement plans, your specs. Big thing here, coordination. You've got Tumwa, NV Energy, City of Reno, NDOT, everybody. We got a lot of people to play with here. And the bidding support through the bidding process. Once we get through that, we would come back to you for any construction administration, which would be the CA and final inspection and record drawings. We would bring that at the time we bring construction. So where we're at in the schedule, as I said, we've already started geotechnical and survey through our approval process that we're allowed here. This amendment would be at the board meeting here. If approved, we would kick JUB engineers off right away to get design going. This is extremely tentative schedule. I really need to preface this. This is a fast track. It really depends on the permitting process and what comes back from all those agencies, what we have to do. Ideally, in a perfect world, and this, you know, there's rainbows and unicorns, we'll have 90% construction documents in June, bid thereafter, try and be to you in July, maybe August for an award, and construction to start thereafter. Trying our best to have something for that November timeframe, where they're really having a hard time in operations for Thanksgiving. Worst case scenario of permitting and getting through some of those, then you're looking at next spring. But we're going to do everything we can to try and beat that. I just don't want to make too many false promises here with you as trustees that if we run into some issues with permitting and layout. This kind of gives you an idea of where we're at in the design fee breakdown. The topo survey with JUB, CME doing our geotechnical. Here's our civil improvement plans, what we'll be asking for in the Amendment 1 with JUB engineers for $261,200. Total design breakout is a little over $313,000. Our program budget, right now we're approved during the mid-year for the design services. We have a budget request in right now for the construction, which would put your total budget a little over $4.2 million. Design services and permitting, we have 360 in there. We're estimating construction management a little over 349,000. There's your construction of 3.5 and other direct cost about 20,000. Some of the revenue projections from operations, and Brandon can speak more to them if you want, is what they're projecting, what this would bring on with the new parking. You can see here through the next few fiscal years what that does for revenue coming in. So with that, staff is seeking recommendation from our Planning and Infrastructure Committee.
No, don't change it.
That you recommend to the board to authorize the president and CEO to execute amendment number 1 to the PSA for design services for the development of the remote economy parking lot construction project at Reno Tahoe International Airport with JUB Engineers Incorporated, the amount of $261,200, and authorize the president and CEO to sign. So myself and Brandon will be happy to answer any questions you may have on the need, the revenues or anything with the design.
Could you expand upon what this will mean to add these spaces for the demand? Does it solve the problem?
It definitely solves the problem in the short term. It will help it. We anticipate the problem be solved with the Excuse me, sorry.
Take you up closer.
Sorry. We anticipate this to, in the short term, relieve the parking capacity issues. We expect when the Conrack comes online in about 4 years that the spaces we get back will ultimately solve the problem in the foreseen future.
And then we've been looking at walking distances for the Conrack facilities, not being outside of, I think it was 1,600 feet. How does this measure our passengers?
So this measures at about 3,500 feet, which we determined is outside of our preferred walking distance. So we're currently in the process of coming up with a shuttle program to provide relief for our parkers in that lot.
And your expectation is this will be used how much in the future? Just for peak periods?
So our current estimations are this lot will be used about 25% at capacity during non-peak times and then at capacity during peak times.
This is a crystal ball question, but since the pandemic is beginning to abate at some degree, do you think this will get us through the period of time until the contract is completed? Crystal ball, yeah.
No.
You're the pro.
We definitely hope. We anticipate with some reallocation of lots that we'll get somewhere close to about 650 spaces, 640. We believe that this will get us through almost all of our peaks except for Thanksgiving and Christmas, as we can't plan for those high of a peaks times. But other than that, we believe that this will help us in the short term.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your professionalism. Thanks.
Sir.
Carol?
No, actually, Trustee Carey actually articulated a couple of the questions that I had regarding distance and shuttles, and then of course I was interested in the revenue potential as well. I'm good with this. I know that we have a need for additional parking. It's something even on the local level that we hear.
Darren?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I just want to add on to some of Brandon's comments. This is something that is strategic for the airport, and we have a number of people working on this issue. Regardless of ultimately who is parking out there, realistically, it's too far for anybody to walk, and that is why in our FY22-23 budget, you will see additional staff for shuttling and equipment acquisition so that we can provide a transportation link from this location. We're also looking at other properties in the area in accordance with the landside plan, rental car occupied spaces. The reality of it is we don't know how high demand is going to get here. We're hoping. Hope's not a great strategy. So we need to build. We also need to repurpose, and we need to make sure people always have a place to park. 2026 is when we're going to have a Conrack hopefully coming online. That is a long time from now, it feels like, and we are getting busier every month. So could it abate some? Certainly. Even if it does, I don't think that abates the need for additional capacity. We're past the tipping point at this point on the peaks, and so we need to pull back in capacity. So I think we're still trying to assess who may actually park out there and how we'll use that lot. I know there's still lots of conversations going on. It doesn't change the fact that we need the lot. And as you can tell, it takes time to do that. Chris is unwilling to commit to a hard deadline. We're pushing him. He's getting battered in the hallways. But, I think we're hoping for May-ish of 23 to be able to bring this product online. We'll be challenged this summer. It doesn't help us this summer. And so I'm tilling the ground with everybody that we're going to have a lot of patience, and there's a lot of staff work going into that. But at the rate we're going right now, we could be very busy this summer. But again, world events continue to change outlooks, and so nobody really knows what's going to be happening, but we're preparing for more growth and more demand. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Also, I know there's some space, once we move the rental cars out north of the existing parking garage, that we could make hopefully fast. Yeah, that would be another area, and all of a sudden, we're getting a whole lot more parking here, you know, and that would be walkable, that piece. All right, well, I guess we've gone through this pretty well. Thank you, guys. Anybody more comments or anything? All right.
No,
well,
sir.
how about a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the amendment number 1.
Thank you, my friend.
I'll second that.
Wonderful. Got a first and second. And I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Yes, and great job, guys, and just get it built like Darren said, and just come on, Chris.
Build it.
I'm. Oh, that's poor Chris. Poor Chris.
Those other agencies, they just, give me a permit.
Please give me. Well, exactly. There's permitting. There's how much landscape. There's
Little
all
access.
Access, like we said, where this comes off of. So there's a whole lot of things that have got to be thought through. I know I've been talking to Chris quite a bit on this one. So,
Mr. Chair, you just prompted me. Will this have like a call box for someone to reach emergency services?
It's, something, Sean, it's something we can definitely look at. We are looking at having the security cameras within the lot so that we do have that ability.
Just because if you're out there and stranded, it might not work well.
Right, and again, like we said, I know I was asking very specific questions, and Chris brought back to me is, hey, this is a contract for the design where we look at some of those items. It's what we're doing during this phase. Sometimes we want you to just build it next month. So, no problem. All right, so then we're going on to your next thing, which is 6.1, which is the schedule, and I'm sure you're speed this one up on the schedule.
Sure, I'd love to. Again, Chris Cobb, Manager of Engineering and Construction. And I'd really like to thank Brandon for coming up and helping me with the last item, really helping explain better their needs. It's been a partnership working with them and engineering and AED, how we're going to get this done. So we've got a great team here at the airport. It comes together and trying to figure out issues and how to move forward. So again, I appreciate Brandon's assistance and our whole team. With that, a few items on here that are highlighted. The continuing saga of closing out our phase 2 out at Stead. And that's really getting the final documents from our contractor. We have finally received all that information that we need to put into report. And those are final pay apps and information as far as DBE percentages. We've gotten those into our engineers' hands. So now we can finish that report and get our closeout documents, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, to the FAA and get that closed out. The benefit here, still, even though it's taken us a little bit of time, usually FAA wants you to close it within 3 years. We're doing it basically within a year. So we're performing well with that in our grants. It's just taking a little longer to get through that process. Scroll down the page. Once you get under a capital improvement program, you've just heard these items. First, the remote economy lot. You can see there in the light green where we've started that geo and survey with the board action hopefully on Thursday, really kicking off in design and chasing after that as soon as possible. Underneath that was not brought to the board just because of expenditure being under the $50,000 is we're starting the design on our general aviation hangar F roof replacement. That's on the east side of here and is in need of replacement. So we're in the design process of that, and depending on where the bids come in, we potentially could be before you in June with a board action. Here again, if it falls within the certain parameters, it may be the CEO's approval, for anything under $250,000. But wanted to show you that we've got a lot going on here. Right after that was the roof assessments that Ted presented to you today. And as he mentioned, I really want to preface this, it is very similar to a pavement management program. This is going to be a great program that really identifies those things that can be repair and maintenance, replacement, rehab, or it's good to go for several years. This really helps us start building a capital improvement program in a 5-year window that helps us sit down with finance, because we have a lot going on here that we want to build with the concourses, the ticketing hall, the loop roads, but we still have maintenance on those things we do own. And this helps us program that out better and really work in concert with our finance department to present something to our executive staff and the CEO so that they can make good decisions on how to spend our money and where to spend it. After that was the FAA Vail program that we brought here to you today as well. So kicking that off, getting that design done, allows us to get that application in the FAA in a timely manner, and then hopefully in turn get that grant to move forward with in construction. Those are the big highlights. We have a lot of things going on with bids opening up on our next phase of STED. We had bids open up on that, Air Cargo Way, here, our lift station there. We'll have terminal lift station opening soon. We recently had our lobby reception. Those will be coming to you as members here in the near future and future board items for approval. So I'd be happy after that. We really have, Conrac is our next. So we did have a good kickoff meeting with them, just really looking at what those new enabling projects could be, where they lie and what happens there. We also had a very successful pre-application meeting with City of Reno last Friday with members of our team, the Conrac team, their design team. Was a very positive meeting with the City of Reno, really understanding what is going to be required in codes and where there were still some questions, allowing City of Reno to go back and look at how and what would apply. So really want to identify that things are rolling there. I know a board item will be coming in the future, just kind of looking at the agreement and updating it since we're restarting. After that is our projects that are continuing to go with Dermody Stellar, and we're working in concert with the Nevada Air National Guard. They have a lot of projects that are occurring out there. We're working with them to make sure we're not a holdup for their success out there at STED. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that may be on the schedule or that was in the write-ups in the project status report.
Great questions. Time for one. No, I can't. All right, well, thank you. Let's go on to Amanda. This next one is a pretty interesting one. This one I've been kind of excited about, which is, you remember with the Workspace study, and you know, this one that we're all, so it's kind of neat as you're going through this, Amanda, so.
Yeah, good morning, Chair, Trustee, CEO Griffin, staff and guests. Amanda Twitchell, Senior Project Manager for the Airport Authority. And I'm really just here for an introduction. Max Hirschenau with HK Architects, he and his team have been hard at work the last few months on the Workspace study. Just a few things I want to note before I bring him up here is this study, he'll go more in depth into the scope and process and all those things, but this study was really, is a comprehensive look at all occupied RTAA spaces. So we looked at everywhere that any of our staff occupy, just to kind of start creating a baseline of, you know, small and large things that are going to need to happen over, you know, up to 20 years. So definitely very comprehensive, but there were a few priorities. We did focus heavily on the administrative space because we need to, we decided we really need to get out of here because it's, you know, there's a higher best use for this space and we're not it. So, you know, the idea of getting the admin space out of here has been a priority. And then the second one is the police station, because as you know, you've toured it and you know that there's some deficiencies there. So that was kind of the other focus of this study. So with no further delay, here's Max.
Thank you. And here's your, that's the, awesome. Thanks, Amanda. Good morning, Max Hirschenau, HK Architects. Amanda gave an awesome intro, so I think I'll just dive in. So, as she said, this has been a very comprehensive plan. In terms of status, we're in our draft phase right now. We have submitted a draft study, and we're here today to talk to the committee a little bit about some of the high points. I think, as she said, there's huge databases. We've had a ton of meetings, so it's been a very robust effort. I think we just want to update you on a little bit about what we've done and kind of where we're going to go. So this is our scope, and I won't hit all of them, of course. I think just to maybe touch on a couple of them, it was hugely collaborative. We met with each department. We toured each of the spaces. The department meetings were wonderful. We had a lot of discussion about their space, their staffing needs, deficiencies within their space. So I think we met with them, we played back what we heard and received comments. So I think in terms of meeting with the department staff, I think really, really comprehensive, I would say. We also have included a workplace strategy report. So there's a lot of numbers that go with this in terms of staff, room sizes, locations. We also wanted it to kind of lean into what's going on in the environment, if you will, of Workspace. So our Workspace strategy report had meetings with staff again. We presented trends, real kind of big picture stuff, you know, what kind of conference rooms, how are people collaborating? You know, whether you're using open office, where's the private office in the grand scheme of things? Kind of looking, you know, if you will, what's Google doing? What the tech companies doing? What are other airports doing? We looked at that, and I'll speak to that in a minute. We also compared RNO to other airports. I'm going to go over that briefly here in a minute. And then we did project 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20. So it's a 20-year vision, but we really wanted to understand what some of the short-term needs and deficiencies are. So we did look at these increments. I'm not going to dive into that data today necessarily. We're presenting the 20-year vision, but there is a lot of really good information. I think especially in that 0 to 5, as Amanda said, second floor is packed, police is packed. There's probably not departments that are just sitting around with a ton of open space just wondering what to do with it. So I think this 0 to 5 is going to provide a good short-term roadmap before CONRAC to understand how you might grow in the short term. So this is our process we went through. I think, again, if I can just maybe highlight a couple of them. Again, department meetings. So as we said, a lot of discussion about current conditions. We've presented to the executive team. We've had 2 charrettes. We've had a ton of meetings that have been open through virtual and also in person. And again, we've developed databases that are providing specific and I would say very highly detailed space programs. So space program is, you know, room areas, number of rooms, types of rooms. So as we said, I think it's been a really robust study, and I think we've, you know, I think really benefited a lot from the feedback from the staff. So it isn't just about the second floor and the terminal, the little black fill areas. We've looked at every facility on the airport, from the fire station down south, airfield maintenance, the parking office. We just talked about that a little bit. Airport ops, shipping and receiving over on Vassar. So it's been broad. We haven't just concentrated on administration and police, although those are going to be the highlights of our presentation here in a minute. But we've looked at every space, and we've talked with every department, and gotten a lot of good feedback. Some have big space needs, others don't maybe have huge space needs, but maybe they need to maybe look at being in a different place. So I think it hasn't been just about space, it's also been about their environments, their location, that kind of thing. So we've generally grouped, so the circles, sorry about that. The circles represent each of the what we call divisions or the functional groups. So, you know, within administration, the upper left, that's pretty much everybody that's on the second floor here currently. In terminal, and these are as we go forward. So you might see a little bit of shifting, although I think for where we're at right now, the administration moving out is the biggest move. Most of the rest of them are probably going to remain in their current location to some extent. So we have the admin, in-terminal, police, building maintenance, building services, security, and then the RNO campus. Darren termed it the campus. I love that. I think that's awesome. So all of the functions from airfield maintenance, again, airport ops. Some of them are co-located, let's say at 2770 Vassar. Others are within their own, like airfield maintenance, airport fire. And then we did include STED as well. I haven't touched on that yet, but again, this is an organization-wide effort. We met with Scott, had a great meeting with Scott, and talked a lot about some of the STED needs. Again, we're not going to go over that today, but that is a part of the draft, and it will certainly be a part of our final document. So I wanted to hit on a couple of the, I think the ones that have the biggest short-term impact, and that's going to be administration and police. So a lot of information here. I'm not going to dive into the whole thing. Basically what we're looking at is on the left is just a little bit of a summary. And then the right side image, this is our database. So these numbers are being generated through a pretty comprehensive kind of Excel effort with organizing space, assigning a square footage to it. We have 3 alternatives because we want to understand a big office and a small office and what those impacts are, different types of collaboration space. So a lot of data there, but I think to maybe just to sum it up, we're looking at about 45,200 square feet of gross area. So that would be the size of a building, let's say, for the administration. So again, this is everybody on the second floor. It's probably relatively hard to read. We're about 35,000 right now. So it's about a 10,000 square foot increase, you know, going on 30% more. A lot of that is staff. A fair amount of it is more collaboration space. And then we are looking to increase support space. So our, as you can see here, current staff, again, within the admin, second floor, 68 full-time employees. We're looking to go to 83 in 0 to 5. So we're going to increase by 15 employees just in 5 years, and then 104 is the projection for the 20-year time frame. And again, these came from department staff with, I think, a good amount of consideration. We're not just winging this. Obviously, it's difficult to know where you're going to be at in 20 years. It's somewhat hard to know where you're going to be at in 5 years. But I think they do have a basis in reality. They were thought out. Again, they were presented back and fact-checked, if you will. So I think we feel pretty good about the numbers. So a lot of growth. And right now, there's room for basically no growth here on the second floor. So I think the study has, you know, vetted out that you need more space. You need a different kind of space in our minds, one with more collaboration space. Of varying sizes. I think it's a very dynamic, the culture is collaborative, not to be overly critical of the space, but I think it's 40 years old, times have changed, and it probably doesn't really support that culture as well as a new facility might. So, sorry, that's where we're at with admin. You know, growth need, short term, bigger growth need long term. We need to address that, and that's what the study does. And again, within each department, we have specifics on that. Maybe just to highlight real quickly, these support spaces we're talking about, in addition to a menu, if you will, of collaboration spaces from little 4-person huddles to up to a new 80-seat boardroom we've talked about. I think staff was very excited about maybe a stepped floor, you know, more of a, let's say, a lecture room or a room that's more conducive to the kind of meetings that go on. And support spaces. Right now, you have a break room that's marginal. Maybe that's being generous. It's just, you know, I think it's old, and so limited opportunities for socialization. So our program includes all of that. It's not just making sure somebody has an office that they can use during the day. It's also, you know, looking into providing a better environment for the employees, staff, board members, you know, everybody that does business with the airport authority. So that's admin. Again, you know, pretty significant, about 45,000 square feet of space. The second functional group is the police department. And Amanda said, you've toured it. We toured it twice. Some huge operational issues. I mean, they're running vehicles and canine, you know, vehicles where airplanes are moving around. And again, you know, from the 1980s, that's where it was. But I think we're looking to, you know, understand that, analyze that, and try and improve on that. So we have a program for what I would say is a new police department office, about 20,000 square feet. They're currently at about 8. So it's a very, very significant increase, but they're lacking in a lot of space. If you add and I'm sorry, there's a typo here, but if you add up sorry about that, let me grab that because that was bad math on my part. The current is 25, not 22. 0 to 5 growth is just a couple, maybe 27. But you'll see the long-term growth is about 50. And so as things grow, obviously, 2 new concourses, ticketing hall expansion, con racks, all the things that go on the airfield. The police department's responsible for the entire airfield. So, a fair amount of staff growth, but what they lack right now are a lot of their support spaces. Their armory is really substandard. Evidence is stored, problematically. They use a room for briefing, break, meetings, training. They roll mats out and then they roll mats back up. So a lot of their space isn't necessarily for a huge increase in staff over the short term, but it's really about giving them the space they need to do their work. So those are the 2 kind of big ones that we picked off that need to be addressed in terms of some of the moving parts that are going on here at the airport. I will also say we've talked quite a bit with Darren about this. These numbers are conceptual. These are rough order of magnitude. So we think they will probably come back with better analysis. I think the term Darren used was unconstrained, and it is a little bit. We've asked people to blue sky things. That's the way these studies work best, I think, in our minds. So these numbers are very fluid even today. But I think we're in the ballpark. We've had a great great input from staff. So I don't take these as this is what a building size is going to look like, but they're rough order of magnitude. I think they're really right on. So in terms of this administration piece, and maybe considering public safety in that same realm, we have identified 3 sites, again, in conjunction with a lot of input from staff. Site number 1 is Conrac. Site number 2 would place this building, let's call it, this space on top of one of the concourses, one of the new concourses, and then site 3 is the site south of Hyatt Place. All 3 of these, obviously the 2 on the airfield are owned by the Airport Authority. This site is owned by the Airport Authority as well. So I'll real briefly through them. This is the Conrac, so we would put the 45,300 square foot administration group, let's say, on the top floor of the Conrac. That has not been totally determined, but it seems functionally like that's where it's going to go. We're not going to insert it in the middle of the ready return. It probably won't. Ground floor space is valuable. So the concept is that it goes on top of the Conrac, 4th floor. It's got some benefits. There's going to be utilities brought to it. It is relatively close to the terminal. In terms of a schedule, construction start mid-2023 and construction complete 2025. So, pretty aggressive. It really follows along with the Conrac, and I think, obviously would need to be plugged into that process in order for that to be developed. So that's site 1. Site 2 is the concourse. So as I mentioned, it would go on top of one of the 2 concourses, let's say, probably the first one that gets developed. 3rd floor, so obviously ramp level, very valuable space. The concourse level, the passenger level, obviously we wouldn't put it there. So it would be on the top, if you will. And one thing to think about, if the operations are like they are now, where there's a fair amount of public engagement, we need to get out to it. So we haven't included that in our analysis, but somehow you'd have to get the public out there, probably on top of the concourse, and likely without going through security. So there's some challenges to this in terms of that, but I think it does fit. Our little 45,300 square foot rectangle would fit. This is a drawing from the concourse planning study that's going on right now. So this is their concourse footprint. So it does fit. Construction would start 2024 and construction complete 2028. So again, that's paralleling with the concourse project. The 3rd parcel is a vacant piece of land south of Hyatt Place, as we said. So this would be a more traditional, I think, office building, 2 stories probably, with surface parking. Again, the airport does own the site. There aren't environmental issues that we're aware of, but we haven't really gotten into that either. It's probably parks pretty close to what the city's going to require. It may be a little bit underparked, but I think those are things that are dealt with in later phases. It kind of has a similar time frame to the Conrac in terms of, with it being an empty site, you could start now, let's say, and finish by maybe mid-2024. So in a very aggressive way, this project is happening in the next couple of years, and I think it really needs to be considered in that way, given some of the opportunities that are out there for the airport authority, and I think some of the challenges with just the 0 to 5. So workplace strategy, I'm just going to hit this real big. Again, this came from one of our partners, Hendrickson Butler, who's a local furniture representative, and they do in office environments. A couple excerpt pages from their report, what we heard from the staff, some of the key items, natural daylight. There's not a lot of, there are a number of spaces that don't have natural daylight, especially staff offices. So we heard that loud and clear. I think the ability to do focus work, but also meetings, different kind of meetings, as I mentioned, little small 4-person impromptu get-togethers, break and relief, and then maybe this last one, a hybrid work model where there's different types of spaces to work within the office environment. So maybe you collaborate with somebody, you go back in your office. So a pretty dynamic, I guess in a real global terms, kind of an open office environment. We're not recommending that, but I think that's something that's certainly out there. And some of the big three was really this individual focus, this idea on that, folks are busy out here, they've got responsibilities. So the idea to focus individually, but also collaborate and socialize. So, I think that has woven its way through our discussions with staff and a lot of our space programming. We did do some comparisons with other airports, SFO, San Diego, and Will Rogers World Airport in Oklahoma City. These are airports that another one of our partners, HOK, has a lot of experience in. We've got a lot of data, and I know this is probably relatively difficult to read, but I'll just hit on a couple. There's variations in where these, and we're talking about the administration piece with this. So they're actually in different locations, as you might expect. Oklahoma City's embedded in the airport, much like RNO. SFO and San Diego are actually remote. In the case of San Francisco, probably further away than the rental car, maybe twice as far. San Diego, it's interesting. They have a landside admin building that's not a part of the terminal right now. They're actually building a new one, and they're building it a little further away, but still outside the airport. So I think this airport comparison has been helpful for us in just, understanding and reinforcing administration probably doesn't have to be. And in many places, just because of the value of space that Amanda mentioned, there aren't really in the terminal. Just a couple other maybe quickies. You'll see the RNO column, a lack of workstations. A lot of the newer ones, SFO and San Diego, were both actually completed. Well, San Diego's in design. SFO was completed last year. A lot more emphasis on workstations, a lot more emphasis on open office, smaller offices. In terms of, you'll see these workstation counts, 213 workstations at San Diego. Well, outside of admin staff here, administration assistant staff here, there's none at Reno. There's no workstation. So just that environment that we kind of talked about, what are the trends? And I think maybe an interesting one is the office to workstation percentage. So we do that just to understand what the environment's like. Here at Reno, we're 85-15, so 85% office, 15% workstations. San Diego's 10% office, 90% workstations. So a lot of open office, a much different environment. And again, we're not taking a position one way or another, but I think we definitely want to put out there that there are different environments. People are looking at workspace a lot different than they were, completely different than they were 40 years ago. And probably different than they were maybe 5 years ago. So I think there's some good lessons learned from the other airports. Just a couple more slides here. So we talked about admin being out on the CONRAC. There's some challenges with the police being out there, response time. There are actually some federal requirements for response time. I think where admin, doesn't need to be in the terminal, police, they're more about probably that location. So we just took a really quick study at how the police might fit into this space. So just to give you we're in the boardroom right here, You're sitting right there. So you come in the front door to admin here. So this orange space is about 20,500 square feet of area. And that does include the atrium. Police is long-term, 20 years, about 200. So again, this is a really 30,000 foot, 60,000 foot test fit, but you could make a case for police being in this space. And I think, again, this needs much, much more discussion, but one of the main purposes for this report is to understand where these components might go. So I think it could go here. There's probably other locations that need to be studied, but we know that they need to get out of the space that they're in and do that in the relative short term. We also, part of our scope is to understand how this space might be used by others. And as the police concept has actually come during the study, but in some of the early stages of the study, we talked with staff. And again, these are largely coming from staff. Possible uses for this second floor. And again, we're looking at about 33,000 square feet. So a pretty significant amount of space. TSA, airlines, AHA, Southwest is growing. I think, there's probably a number of them that are growing. So airline operations up here, again, we're right above basically above the ticketing counters, above the airport airline operations area, maybe second floor retail, some training rooms, job fairs. We've drawn these little arrows. There could be relatively easy ways to get here from airside. And I think there's been a lot of talk about, tenants needing space, airlines maybe needing space. Maybe a post-security lounge, maybe a rooftop idea, so you could see the planes come and go. Post-security. So a lot of options. I think, again, we're going to just roll these up and include these in the report. The bottom drawing is a drawing of the structural system, and I guess maybe just ask you to squint. The fact that there's not a lot of color on there means it's a post and beam structural system, steel columns, pretty open, and at this point in our feeling, really pretty easy to improve, do a tenant improvement. So I think it offers a lot of potential. So work completed and next steps. Work completed, so again, I've summarized it today. The draft study has been completed. We are doing test fits on the CONRAC and also for the police like we talked about. Just some big picture next steps for RTAA. We're going to incorporate this admin, and this is actually ongoing, incorporate the admin space programming into CONRAC, continue the analysis of the location for police, and then I think really hammer on this 0 to 5 year staff increases that we heard and align those with existing space available or maybe not available as the case is. So I think those are three big ones that are going to come out of the report in the really short term, and again, some of them are ongoing right now. For us, we're going to complete review of the draft. It's in review right now by staff. We've gotten some comments. We're going to finish our QC. We're going to incorporate review comments into the final workplace study, and we're anticipating completion of the study in April of this year. So basically next month, we're looking to put a bow on this and put it out there to the world and let it be used. So that's it. I know there's a lot there. There's a gazillion times more in the report, so I hope I didn't take too much of your time, but really exciting project. I think it's going to pay huge benefits to the airport authority just in terms of understanding the workspace, and it really hasn't been, I don't know if it's been done. I don't know when the last time it was done. So we've really enjoyed it. The staff, chiefs, all the way down to everybody we talked to have just been fantastic. So we really appreciate the chance to speak to you today about it.
Thank you.
Aaron, could I hear your thoughts?
Well, thank you. I do have a few thoughts, as you might imagine. First, I want to thank Max and his team. I agree. This is going to be a huge asset and resource to our organization. We needed a plan for all of our occupied spaces, for every employee to understand their current environment and where we need to be thinking about short, medium, or long-term improvements. Whether that's just getting bigger or modernization of space, I think this plan does that for us. And as you can tell, there's a couple areas of immediate need that Max has hit on. And, I think you've heard several references to the Conrack, and we are in conversations with Conrack Solutions about our needs that have been identified and whether they could be accommodated as part of that build out. And as the board knows, and Max will be back on Thursday and he'll do this again, and I'll probably make these same comments, but they need to know pretty quickly if that's a partnership there that they need to account for. They are trying to pick up for lost time and get into design. So these things have come together really nicely so that hopefully we can identify in the short term, is there something there that we could piggyback on and find a co-location model that would save us some cost and save them some cost. If there isn't, Max has identified a couple other locations for us to be thinking about. And, I do think we need a plan for the future. We are out of space here. And first you start with a plan and then you figure out how to execute it. Those were my words in terms of unconstrained. When you sit down and ask staff if you're ever going to need more space or hire more employees, you get an answer, you would expect. And these answers are based on the expectation of airport growth. And I do think we agree that we are likely to grow in the years ahead. Nobody knows exactly how much. And when it comes time to start designing or paying for space is when we get pressure on us to sharpen the pencil a little bit. And it's hard to envision 20 years, but I think 5 to 10 easily we should be accounting for when we're thinking about new space. So I'm excited to get this plan wrapped up. I'm excited for the work that's been done. It's been very inclusive. And we've talked to everybody, and by we, I mean Max and his team, and we've gotten great input from everybody. We're going to have a plan that I think will serve us well. I think the police is a pressing need, and I like the idea of exploring that, or their location up here, or maybe they're with us in the Conrack or somewhere else, but it's important to know our choices, figure out what makes the most sense. It's important to hear from our police leaders and employees, and what do they feel most strongly about, and the right answer will appear. And I'm very confident of that. But the most important takeaway here is that we get this thing done and we start putting it into action. Otherwise, plans like this just collect dust on a shelf, and this one won't. This one is going to lead us to action in the very near term, and we have to be smart about it in light of everything else that we're doing. But it's time to make an investment, and this space that we're occupying is really fascinating space, and its ability to generate revenue for us. It's an expansion of the airport without adding on to the terminal building. And that is something that has been done at a number of other airports. It's the easiest way to expand your terminal building is to get out of it. And, we are not an essential function, and those essential functions that are under this roof will remain. And you see that in other airports as well. So, Mr. Chair and Mr. Chair, I am really happy with this work. We're tilling the ground here for some, I think, relatively important decisions by the end of this spring and early summer for the board to help us go forward and figure out how to handle all of these needs. But first, it's key to understand what are your needs. So I want to thank Max. We're not designing any workspace, and I appreciate them not taking a position because that is a polarizing topic very quickly. It's more in a function of what do we need and where could it be? And then designing that space comes later. And that's a great debate to have right now with the impact of the pandemic and workspace changing, how it's being used, who's staying home, who's coming in, is there a blend, and what does that do to your space need? And that'll be a fascinating discussion when we get to that step. So hopefully that answers any questions from me, but I'm happy to take any more. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Other questions, Sean? Do you have any? Well,
Okay.
I'm asking you.
I think that this is a great step forward. I agree 100% on the police facilities. I think that's a sooner rather than later. It's a pretty high priority. I think it has to have some type of front-facing, front desk function, so being accessible if it's on that second floor or in another location. I like that you see the urgency to keep that in the middle of the building somewhere. I think that's a response criteria that's very important to meet. I think it's important we look at this as a priority. As you look at the IT functions and the space those guys are trying to work in, building machines, tearing machines apart, they'll do a lot better work if they're not
stuff not falling on them, frankly. So I think IT's got some real issues there. I do like that you're looking at the Conrack. I think that's a great opportunity to leverage what we can get in rent out of parts of this space and their construction, and put that in a great step forward. I think we can meet a lot of our needs with that team going forward, and I'm excited by that. Last one is, did we do any look at these spaces being a target for a vacant space across the street in that office building? If that's not probably critical to this study, maybe just in your processes, Darren, to see if there's a way to meet some of this demand with existing office space, because we're going to have a number of years before this happens, and if we can make some interim moves, maybe that starts the stage running in a direction. And I just push that out there as a thought. And then somewhere I'm wanting to see something regarding the offsetting of our carbons when we build things like terminals and office spaces and stuff like that, because I just think we're going to have to meet the challenge of the environment sooner rather than later. And we just like not maybe this project, but maybe it's a separate project to see where we can meet our energy needs in a more environmentally friendly way than what we're doing now. And that's probably a long-term planning thing, not related to this agenda item, but thanks you for your indulgence on that. That's all I have.
Okay. Carol?
No, I don't have any additional comments. Looking forward to the final presentation.
Yeah. Been so long, anyway, so, any other comments? To me, I'm gonna wait till, on Thursday, am I hearing this right, that you're gonna do the same presentation? This is just a look in this group before, right?
Yes, sir. We wanted this committee to get a chance to hear this first, just so we could incorporate any feedback right away. But I think it's important that the entire board hear kind of where Max and team landed and what some of those high-level conclusions are. As you can tell, we could easily spend a couple hours getting in the weeds, and we don't want to do that. But the report will be available for any board members that want to go through that. But hearing what the conclusions are, I'll circle back to Trustee Carey's comments in terms of interim space. We are thinking about that because, timelines are long here on building a new space, and I don't think we can wait 5 years to improve the police situation. And if we were to decide this is the location for them, I think we'd have to look at how do we get out of here then so we can get to work on this space. Could that be across the street? Absolutely. We would look any place within I think a reasonable distance to start the process moving, because 5 years is just a long time, although not necessarily in construction timelines, right? But when we're trying to improve the space that's occupied, especially by first responders, I think we have to be looking for as near-term action as we can get. So Max and his team and their work is going to help us with that for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? All right, with that, thank you, Max. Thanks, everyone, and we'll go through this again on Thursday. Yeah. So thank you. Okay, next thing is the monthly projects of the projects. Chris, did you have any that you wanted to bring up? Any specific ones on this item or?
Chris Berbert,
Sure.
Chris Cobb, Manager, Engineering Construction. I didn't at this time, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody else want to bring anything out? And Carol?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, and myself too. We've kind of gone through most of them, and thank you. The only thing I can say is, God, you guys got a lot going on. And and good job to try to keep on top of all this. Everything's moving everywhere, and it just appears to me we're so much better off that we're seeing operations, we're seeing maintenance, we're seeing all the collaboration between all the groups has got better and better here. And I know, like Chris way in the back over there, my friend, you know, he's got some real concern of what we do and where we do the functions. And that's, we want to make sure it's not done by design in a vacuum, and, you know, and make sure, you know, and everybody seems to be doing a great job on that, Darren, commend you. And incredible how much will be done. So I know you spent a lot of hours, Chris, and thank you.
Welcome, sir.
All right.
Good team.
Yeah. All right, next item, if we don't have any other member, next one is member comments and questions. Anything else want to put on the agenda? Carol?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
All right, next is public comment. Do we have all this public comment?
No public comment.
No public comment. Thank you. Adjournment. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Max.
Nice job, Art.
Think we're-